bleed green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place.
Ready? Right.
This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go.
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go. Go.
And a good Tuesday dual practice day on Birds 365. You got your Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365 for a quick 2 hours. We're going to fly through the 2 hours. It's going to be like an Eagle practice, the rapidity with which we make our way through the 2 hours. Don't know if we'll color code it ahead of time or
orange.
After the fact.
Let's go orange.
We're going orange. You liked the orange the other day, huh, Johnny?
Yeah, let's go mauve. Let's go. I don't know. Yeah.
Is it mauve or mauve?
I think it's mauve, but what do I know? I'm not a big color guy. Orange.
I've been known to mispronounce some things in my day, but I think you got mauve wrong. But that's just me. Well, then let's start right there. After the fact, there's Eagles put a color practice on it before they get underway. After the fact, what color would you paint the Eagles-Browns joint practice after the fact, purely from an Eagle perspective?
It wasn't good, so I shouldn't say that. It was about even, but I would say both defenses beat both offenses, which surprised me, to be honest. I would have expected the opposite on both ends. So I don't think it was a good day for the offenses for either team. And it was a little bit of a surprise from the Eagles' perspective because I think it was all tied to the inability to handle Myles Garrett in the Cleveland front, which is always not with Myles because that guy can play, man. And you're not game planning, remember. So if you're preparing for the Browns, you're spending all week trying to essentially block Myles Garrett. That's where you start, right? And they're just leaving poor Jordan Mailata out there to deal with him one-on-one. And, he probably by himself blew up 5 or 6 different reps offensively. That's how dominant he was and is. And that can make the offense look bad. And same thing with the Cleveland offense. The defensive front of the Eagles completely dominated them. So we're talking about 2 of the 5 best offensive lines in football got pretty beat up, both literally and figuratively on the football field. And Jack Conklin had to leave, is in the concussion protocol. Landon Dickerson had to leave, undisclosed injury. Jason Kelsey got banged up at the end of practice, but he's fine, so don't panic. They got their what's handed to them on both sides of the football. So it was, we joke around because the Eagles are the undisputed joint practice champions until Miami beat them. And I used the Jody Mack. I'm going to give you credit. Because I said that's a draw. And I said, I like your exercise when we pick wins and losses if you had to go one up or you had to go one down. So I did that. If I had to pick somebody, I'd pick Cleveland. So 51-49. But it was kind of an ugly practice from an offensive standpoint.
And last year they ran a joint practice against Cleveland as well. And I remember us, I think, saying virtually the same thing, that it was pretty much of a draw of a practice. Eagles at one point were 5-0 in joint practices. They went 4-0 in Nick's first year. They beat Cleveland the first day in Cleveland. Second day, a draw, or if you had to make it a call, you probably would have gone Cleveland. And if that's the case, yeah, they're 5-0 at one point. You make the argument they've lost the last three because Cleveland could have beaten them the second one last year. Miami beat them badly. They only had one because the flu went through the Dolphin locker room the next day and they canceled it. And if they got beat yesterday, it was nice that they started 5-0 in the Sirianni era, but you make an argument they've lost three in a row, could you not?
Well, I mean, I when I say wins and losses, and I'll give it to too much Elliott Short Parks mentioning this week. I'll give it to him. He's the one who started. We say it tongue in cheek. I mean, that's not what practice is about, winning and losing. They're not trying to win, or both teams are trying to lose. But from my perspective, it's who looks more impressive. And, because like I said, I use Myles Garrett as a example. Like, you're doing literally, you start when you play the Cleveland Browns offensively. All right, how do we block Myles Garrett? That's your whole focus, and you don't do that in practice. You're not game planning for that specific. Like the Browns had a real difficult time with Dallas Goedert. That was, pretty much the only constant with the Eagles offense when they were able to get a playoff. They couldn't deal with Dallas Goedert. And if they were game planning for the Eagles, they'd figure out pretty quickly we got some issues with Dallas Goedert, and they try to tweak some things and try to minimize it. So it works both ways. But yeah, as far as who looks more impressive, very slight edge to the Browns. And I would say, again, both offenses were pretty disappointing. If you would ask me yesterday to predict, all right, who's going to look good, I would have said the offenses. The exact opposite happened.
That's not the way it played down in South Philly yesterday. You just said Dallas Goedert, a couple of big plays yesterday, looking at times unstoppable. Read a couple other Eagle beat guys reports, and they concurred that Goedert was maybe the Eagles' the best offensive player yesterday. And we know that Dallas Goedert is that good, and we expect him to be that good over the course of the rest of the year. How about the rest of the Eagle tight ends? They got a bunch in camp. Everyone seems to be leaning towards Stoll is going to make it purely because he's the best blocking tight end they have on the roster, not named Dallas Goedert, maybe. But then there's four other guys in camp who are looking to either be the third tight end or a guy who's going to be part of the practice squad who could be moved up and down depending on needs and injuries and the like. Yesterday and just overall throughout the camp, how do you rate the guys who are fighting for a tight end roster spot?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's wide open, but right now, if you had, Jack's going to make the team. I mean, to me, it's who's after Jack Stoll. He's solidified, and then it comes down to the tight end three, and right now it looks like chalk. It looks like Brand Calcaterra is going to, one of the players I've been, I don't want to say disappointed, but surprised and hasn't showed up is Dan Arnold, because I thought he might be relevant. Really haven't seen much from him. Tyree Jackson's kind of Tyree Jackson. He'll make a splash play every now and again because of his size and his athleticism, but the consistency isn't there. So right now it's kind of Grant Calcaterra by default. Not that he's done that much, but the other guys haven't seized the opportunity. And, somebody like Brady Russell's way down on the depth chart. Not, he's more of a potential practice squad candidate. That could be a position they scan the waiver wire and say, and maybe somebody cuts loose somewhere else and they bring him in. They did it with Dalton Keene a couple times last year, had him in again. Yeah, he didn't make the team ultimately. They put him on the practice squad. But you might see them go outside the organization to try to find some competition for Grant Calcaterra, because I don't think Arnold is pushing him. I don't think Tyree Jackson. Now, Arnold is such a veteran, maybe they'll default to that, but I haven't seen it to this
Yeah,
point.
I thought of you immediately when he made a catch against the Ravens in the preseason game, because you did early in camp sing his praises that, hey, anything that goes his way, he catches. He just has got really good hands, and he's great at catching the ball. But on that play, all he had to do was make one move, and he was going to get a first down. It was like a 3rd and 8, and he caught a ball 6 yards down the field, and he couldn't shake the tackle. He couldn't make a move around the tackle. He got tackled immediately after the catch and ended up being a 4th down, and they had to punt anyway. I know that Arnold's been in the league for years, but I really honestly don't remember him. Not that he can't make plays, but I don't remember making any plays when I was watching his team, and he's jumped to a couple different teams at any time. And I say, all right, well, let's see if he can make a move. He didn't. So that was a little disappointing from the game against the Ravens, and apparently didn't do much yesterday in the practice either. All right, the other offensive position where everybody's going to ask us this every day, John, on the stream, on WIP for me on nights if I'm on, running backs. How are they going to decide with the running backs? DeAndre Swift, one big play in the preseason game. I put him in bubble wrap. We think we know what he's got. Kenny Gainwell is, some people think, the de facto leader in the clubhouse for more snaps than anybody else. Rashad Penny got the most snap action in the game against the Ravens. Other than Boston Scott hasn't been a factor so far in the 2 activities, one game, one joint practice, that they've had against other teams. Any change in your thought process as to how the running backs are going to be used after these last couple of days?
No, I'm still, the 2 constants are Gainwell and Swift. They're going to be here. They're going to be a big part of it. And then it's to be determined. I don't think, Boston Scott is all that relevant when it comes to major touches, but he's a big part of special teams, and the Eagles are comfortable with him as a backup. So to me, he's the clear number 4. And then it's, can Trey Sermon push Rashad Penny off the roster? I haven't seen anything from Trey Sermon other than Nick Sirianni bringing him up. And by the way, even that, he brought him up in the offseason, but now, it's been people asking him about Trey Sermon because he brought him up in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't been doing it unprompted any longer. So, to me, Penny's, as long as he stays healthy, he'll be that guy. But as far as how it shakes out as touches, I don't know. Like I said, high leverage situations, it's going to be Kenny Gainwell. But does that mean on 1st and 2nd down, it's going to be Kenny Gainwell? Like 20 to 20? No. But they seem to trust him the most. And again, if they're backed up, it's going to be Kenny Gainwell. If they're in the red zone, it's going to be Kenny Gainwell. If they're in hurry up, it's going to be Kenny Gainwell. Unless something changes drastically between now and New England, I think it's going to be that. Now, who gets the majority of the touches from 20 to 20? Swift is exciting because you saw the juke in Baltimore. He's tremendous in the open field. But I just don't know if he can handle the workload. And Penny, when he's healthy for the 6 games he's healthy, you can give him the ball and feed him the ball because he's got size, he's got strength, he's got physicality. But how long is he going to stay healthy? I think that's a low-key problem for the Eagles running back. The assumption that, whatever 200 and however many touches Miles had last year, that's easily replaceable by a collaboration of four,
Right.
I think is, boy, I don't like that philosophy. I don't like it. I don't like that philosophy.
Oh, I don't like it because it's a question mark. I'm not saying it can't be answered yes. It could certainly be answered yes. And the four of them could balance it out, and it could be a shared effort, and it could be fine. But you can't tell me you know that it's going to be fine. So that makes it a question mark, and you don't like question marks going into the season. And I think the Eagles, I wouldn't call it a problem. I wouldn't call it a hole, but I'd call it a question mark. And I think you're right to be legitimately questioning if the Eagles are going to be as good in the backfield. And the other thing about Gainwell, you said you think he's going to be the high leverage guy. Again, people have it's gotten my goat a little bit when people say, "Oh, he had that great playoff run." No, he had that great playoff game. He was great against the Giants. The game against San Francisco, he was okay. And yeah, he got more touches than Miles Sanders did in the Super Bowl because Miles kind of screwed the pooch the first time he got his hands on the ball. He should have gone straight up the field. Instead, he tried to bounce it outside. Bad.
He also, that's what gets my goat. Miles also was hurt.
And he got hurt. Yeah, I was good for that.
Yeah.
He got hurt in the game. So Kenny Gainwell got more touches than they did. That to me doesn't equate to, oh, Kenny Gainwell had the great playoff run. No, he had a great game. The Eagles played 3 postseason games. Kenny Gainwell was average to mediocre in 2 out of the 3. One of them, he was great. One of them made big plays. But the whole narrative of, oh, Kenny Gainwell.
Well, that stems from the Eagles. The Eagles were very happy with Kenny Gainwell in the playoffs. The juice, not necessarily what he brought to the offense. I think a lot of it had to do, and this is the part that gets my, not only in the Super Bowl, Miles Sanders was playing hurt before the Super Bowl. He had a knee problem. He was playing with a brace for the last couple games of the season. Finally took it off in the playoffs, but he wasn't the same physically. And that's why Kenny Gainwell got more touches. It wasn't like it wasn't like they were saying, oh, Kenny's looking better than Miles. Kenny's a better player than Miles. Miles was hurt. He was hurt. And that's why his touches went up. And that's the part that gets my goat. Now, when people say it again, that's because the Eagles did. The Eagles have said it consistently behind the scenes, in front of the scenes. They liked the way Kenny played in the playoffs. You know, during the regular season, he wasn't good. They were disappointed, and he didn't take a step forward. And then he kind of showed up. And again, it's not even about the production. It's about, if you watch the film, he did show a sort of burst that wasn't there. And he did look impressive. And that's why they got excited about it. But he didn't I've seen that so much. He didn't overtake Miles Sanders.
No.
Miles Sanders was banged up. That's what it was about. And that's what I'm saying. People turn the page quickly on good football players. I'm not saying Miles Sanders is great, but he is a good running back. And to assume that this group is going to replace Miles Sanders, I think is taking it too far. Is it possible? Anything's possible. But I don't see Miles Sanders in this group.
Nor do I. And you mentioned that the Eagles let it be known that they were quite happy with the way Kenny Gainwell played in the postseason. Did the level of their excitement raise after Miles Sanders signed with the Carolina Panthers? Or was it from the day after the Super Bowl?
No, it was from the day of. It was during the run. It wasn't, post Miles Sanders.
Okay. You know that better than me. You're around him all the time. You're a beat guy. I'm not. So I'll take your word for that. But just a quick reminder, Eagles fans who think good riddance to bad rubbish with Miles Sanders. 11 touchdowns last year. Not 4, not 8, not 10. 11 Miles Sanders touchdowns that need to be replaced this year. Might not be as easy sledding as some people think. All right, Jody McDonald, John McMullen, a.k.a. Mac here with you on Birds 365. We are scheduled to be joined by our buddy Les Bowen, whose podcast, Bowen on the Birds, is a good watch for all you Eagle fans out there. I was supposed to send Les a reminder text, and I just realized I haven't sent it to him yet. So we're hoping, after our first time out, that Les is ready to rock and roll with us here on Birds 365.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
EAGLES, Eagles.
You got Mac and Mac, John McMullen and Jody McDonald here with you. We've got Les Bowen with us doing the outside thing. Nice enough. Yeah, a little sticky out there over there in Haddonfield already, Mr. Bowen.
It is, but I have both the ceiling fans going. I hope they don't mess up my elaborate.
Rubbing it in, Mr. Gray-haired. At least you got some, unlike me and Johnny Mac.
Yeah. Well, I gave up, so I just shaved.
I'm close to that. I sweep it back so it looks like I actually have some growing back here. That's a little trick. But we have painters coming in today, and they're about to arrive. So I thought I would take refuge back here on the porch.
Very nice.
Nice.
Refuge. The Eagles need a little refuge yesterday from that Myles Garrett guy destroying the Eagles' offensive line. Blip on the radar screen, acknowledge one of the best players in the National Football League. We thought the Eagles had the best offensive line in all of football. Maybe we have to continue to evaluate this as we go. What category would you fall into, Les Paul?
Yeah, I fall into the category of they didn't game plan or, set up any plan for Myles Garrett. And, I don't look too far into it. I mean, there isn't anybody better than him. So it's not like this was some, mediocre dude that did this. We'll see. Jordan Mailata is not prime Jason Peters yet. I mean, he's made a lot of incredible progress in his astounding NFL career. Jordan has, but he still has some things to do. He's not, you don't see, if you see the list of the top 5 left tackles in football, you don't see his name. He works hard and he's huge. I think in a game they would give him a little more help with a tight end or something. And, I don't see it as any reason to be really alarmed, but it's something maybe to stick in the back of your mind going forward, that this guy isn't quite yet, he's not Lane Johnson either,
No. And that's not fair, but Les brings up a good point. I mentioned that too, Les. If you're playing the Cleveland Browns during the regular season, that's where you start offensively. You say, all right, how do we block Myles Garrett? That's your whole week. That's where you start.
Right.
And you're going to chip him. You're going to help with the tight end. You're going to do all these things in game planning when you're playing the Cleveland Browns, playing Myles Garrett. That's what you do. That's why I think people over sort of emphasize practice specific practice reps.
Right,
You're just
but
out there.
You say, John, you say people. Do those people not include Nick Sirianni and the Eagles? They put such an emphasis on these joint practice things. You can't, after the fact, when it doesn't go well, you go, yeah, but we didn't game plan.
No, well, yeah, but Nick knows what he's trying to accomplish. Of course they take it. And they know that Jordan Mailata can't handle Myles Garrett one-on-one, but that's not what practice is about.
But I also think, Jordan will see the tape of this and get
better.
Outland about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the whole point.
This goes back to when everybody said, oh my God, the schedule's tougher this year. I kind of like that because I saw what happened in the Super Bowl. The Eagles just sort of skipped and jumped through the regular season last year, playing a lot of bad teams, and their defense had all these wonderful rankings that we kept referring to when people would criticize Jonathan Gannon. Oh, they're first in this and they're second in that and that. I want to see them struggle, against some good opponents and learn and get better. I think that's the idea, and I think that's the idea of these joint practices. I'm glad they're having a joint practice with a good team, I think that's how you get better.
And it works both ways because Cleveland was having a heck of a time trying to deal with Dallas Goedert,
Yeah.
And if they might game plan for that and say, well, we have some issues. We're not going to be able to handle Dallas Goedert. And they might do some things and bracket coverage and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's the part that's kind of missed, not from everyone, but with practice, you're practicing, you're trying to get better. And that's the goal of it. And that's where I think it differs a little bit when you see, I talked about it all early in camp last. Marcus Mariota did not look good. And part of that was he was playing shortstop half of the time because the backup center couldn't get the football back.
They were using Brett Toth. Yeah.
And, that throws off the timing of every play. And then they brought in Josh Andrews, and he settled things down. He could at least get the ball back. And all of a sudden, he looks better. Yes. I mean, Jalen Hurts could have gotten, sacks. I put sacks in quotations in practice. 7-8 times he could have been sacked. They could have blown the play dead. And who knows, in a real game, Jalen might escape that.
Yeah.
So it works both ways there as well. But Myles by himself blew up 5 or 6 reps by himself.
But this is how you get guys ready.
Yeah.
You're not going to play them in the real games, the preseason games. I shouldn't say real games because preseason games aren't real games. But you're not going to play them in the games. This is how you get Jordan Mailata ready to play the season, and these other guys too, And I just think it's tremendously valuable. I remember last year when they went to Cleveland, Jordan really wanted to meet Myles Garrett.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Big.
He was talking about it this year.
He got to do that. And, I just think it's I wish he did better. I wish he handled Myles Garrett.
Sure. Well, we all do.
That would be wonderful. But it doesn't. I'm not ready to climb the walls because he didn't.
Yeah.
All right, Les, if you want to point the finger at Jody McDonald, feel free. Go ahead.
Wow.
Or any other media member. No, this is for my next question. For me, Quez Watkins has a little bit of a target on him this year because Nick Sirianni went out of his way after a practice to go, and played well for us, Quez Watkins. It's Quez heard from some of you guys, all right, guilty, that he stinks and he's not good enough. And Quez Watkins is a problem. And he went big time to his defense. And then Quez himself here in the preseason came out and attached the word elite to himself. So between those two stances, I'm kind of expecting things from Quez Watkins. And he didn't play in the game on Saturday, didn't play again yesterday. He's got a hamstring issue. Am I going to be too over the top when I'm going, nice catch, Quez. One doesn't make you elite. 2 targets, 1 receptions, Quez. You want to rethink that whole elite thing? Am I putting Quez under too strong a microscope?
No, he's down to his last chance here, and he's better. It's not his fault that his hamstring is injured, but that doesn't help him any. I guess Zacchaeus is looking pretty good from what I hear, John.
Except he didn't play in the game on Saturday, which even John McMullen couldn't figure out why.
Yeah.
He was
I did kind of figure out why, in that Quez and Britton Covey are both down with hamstring injuries. So they wanted to make sure they had Olamide for first team work against the Browns. So I think that's why.
Oh, really? They were saving him for the joint practice yesterday. Okay.
Yeah. So they wanted to make sure he was involved in that.
But with Quez, he's had this tremendous promise, but he's been here quite a while and he's regressed, it seems. I mean, last year was dreadful. Drop passes, important drop passes. I think I said this when I was on with you before. When I was out at training camp last year, I talked to Mike Quick, who was a big Quez Watkins fan, who really thought Quez had everything it took to get to make an impact. But he was in a role, where there's Devontae Smith, there's A.J. Brown, and there's Dallas Goedert, who are weapons here before he is.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of like being a pinch hitter in baseball. You don't get that many plate appearances, and you really have to deliver when you get one. And he doesn't seem to thrive in that sort of environment. Can he still be good? I guess. I'd like to see him out on the field, and maybe we can find out.
I like that analogy, Les. I always bring that up, the pinch hitter in baseball, because some guys, like some more talented guys, they can't be a pinch hitter. They can't be a utility player. Right. They can't play once a week. But other guys can embrace it and perform, and maybe they have a little bit less talent. He's not going to get a lot of traffic here. He's just not.
That's right.
And if he needs it, it's not coming. Look, I would have stayed away from the elite word if I were Quez Watkins, if I were offering advice. But if he makes plays when the opportunity arises, which he didn't do last year, I think he'll be fine. I think he has, when he was healthy, he was clearly outplaying Olamide Zacchaeus. Clearly. So he was holding his job.
Okay.
But the injury can affect things. That can affect things quickly. Olamide is taking advantage because all of a sudden he's starting to make some plays. And that's a good thing, competition. Especially
and they had that big rookie receiver too, right? Who's made some plays.
Yeah, you know who Tyree Cleveland, though, is sort of he was he got a lot of targets in the game.
Mm-hmm.
He's more ready. That Jonathan Nada, Joseph Nada, sorry.
Yeah.
He has trouble getting separation.
Okay.
He's a really big guy. And it makes some sense. He's not A.J. Brown. He looks like A.J. Brown size-wise.
A lot of guys look like A.J. Brown.
Yeah.
That's the trick.
Yeah. But he can't get separation like A.J. Brown. So I think Tyree Cleveland, when you're looking at those big backup, they got a bunch of guys who are 6'2". Mm-hmm. I think Tyree Cleveland is starting to separate himself. And he's got some experience in Denver. So that helps as well.
Yes, he does.
Yeah. I'll ship to the running back because that's besides linebacker, which we'll get to as well, Les. But running back is so interesting to me because I can't figure it out. Figure it out. Other than Kenny Gainwell and DeAndre Swift are going to be a part of it. I mean, and then it's like, but I can't tell you who's going to get the most touches. It could be Penny. He could be off the team. I mean,
I think Kenny's on the team.
No, Penny.
Oh, Penny.
Kenny's on the team.
Yeah.
Penny Rashad Penny could either lead this team in touches or be cut and not be here week one. I think it's that drastic.
Yeah. Well, I was out there one day last week and I really noticed Kenny Gainwell. And maybe that's just a holdover in my mind from the playoffs where I really started to take him much more seriously as a player than I had previously. But he was really running with authority and really, snappy and sharp in that practice. And he's younger than these other guys, and at running back, I mean, it's ridiculous to talk about a guy who's maybe 26, 27, 28. Once you get several years experience, you're still really young, but with that running back position, it seems like fresh is the key word for a lot of these guys. And Gainwell, I think maybe Gainwell's the number one guy. But I don't know. I mean, is a guy like Swift holding something back because he's pretty sure that he's in the mix here? I can't say, but yeah, they've got a lot of. It's not like Miles Sanders was the number one back.
Yeah,
we all understood that.
Yeah,
and you're right; they don't have that right now,
and that concerns me. And that concerns me more than most people. I think most people are like, "Oh, who cares? We'll replace what Miles did." Miles was a good player.
Yeah, he was, but I do think they have a lot of talent. I think they have more talent, aggregate talent, than they had last year at that position.
Since we're talking about running game, I'll tell you, John says a little worried about the running backs. Maybe I'm slightly less, but I think it's a legit concern for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you what I think's a bigger concern: other teams' running backs.
Yeah,
because I don't know how the Eagles are going to be stopping the run this year. We all believe if Jordan Davis stays healthy, that will be an upgrade. Truth be told, Linval Joseph wasn't that bad when they picked him off the scrap heap and plugged him in Jordan Davis's role. He did a decent job of it. So I don't think that position makes the difference. I know Javon Hargrave graded out horribly against the run last year. So Carter or Milt Williams, who fills in there, yeah, that could be a potential upgrade. But the linebackers, how are they going to be against the run? TJ Edwards was dynamite last year, and Kaiser White was pretty damn good.
Who are the linebackers, Jody?
Understood. Yeah. And I love John's line. He uses it from time to time. Nobody worries about stopping the run until they have to stop the run. And I think the Eagles fall into that category of, when are you going to start to worry about stopping the run? I think the Eagles will run the ball effectively enough. I don't know if they're going to stop the run effectively enough. Do you have the same concern, Les?
I do. You don't have to shut down the run in the NFL. You can give up 4 yards a carry or maybe even 5 yards a carry, but you can't give up 7 yards a carry. And that's kind of what they were doing in the second half of the Super Bowl, and why it was always 2nd and 2. And, that can't happen again. I don't know. The linebacker thing is really interesting. They just haven't. We've been through this for years and years and years. They just seem to sort of go with whoever they end up with. It almost seemed like an accident last year that they ended up with good linebackers. Edwards wasn't.
It is every time. Yeah. It's an accident, Les.
Edwards wasn't a guy that he was an undrafted guy that they kind of developed on his own, one of the two. And then Kazir White was a guy they signed, just like all the guys they sign every year, just like Nicholas Morrow and Miles Jack and all these other guys that he played well the first half of the season. I don't think Kazir White was very good the second half of the season. But, so you got Nakobe Dean, you hope. We talked, I think the last time I was on here, about his size, and he had an ankle injury already in camp. I guess he's back from that now. And they really put a lot of stock in Nakobe Dean, and I hope that works out. They've got Morrow. They got Jack. Does Miles Jack have a lot left? I don't know. He's been cut a couple times now.
Boy, to me, Zach Cunningham looks better than Miles Jack.
Oh, okay. Well, there's another guy that's he's been on the scrap heap for a while. Zach Cunningham has.
I think they've taken it too far at linebacker, Les.
They've done that before. You remember the Doug Peterson year, the 2020 season that went so bad. A big part of that was they didn't have NFL quality linebackers.
No.
And you do have to be able to play. You do have to have guys that are better than practice squad level guys. And I mean, as long as Nakobe Dean's healthy, I guess they'll be kind of okay. And I guess Sidney Brown's going to fly around and try to, knock down runners.
Sidney Brown linebacker, huh? Johnny Mack loves him because he plays with a lot of speed. Can he
I wasn't as impressed as some people were.
Well, here's my thing with Sidney, Les. He's
Yeah.
got so much more burst and range than any
does.
other safety they have. And I've said this with Jim Schwartz coming back. I always use Jim's term startup costs with young players because I love that term that he coined. And I said, if you look at the Eagles' schedule, they can afford to make some mistakes early with Sidney Brown. They can beat those teams early on the schedule. Then when you get to the Kansas City, and Jody brought up week 6 and the his Jets, what if you're not playing well, Terrell Edmonds or Kayvon Wallace, and you say, all right, we got to get Sidney in there, and it's Aaron Rodgers. But then guess what? He's going to make some stinking mistakes.
Yeah, that's a good point, John.
He still might make mistakes, but he'll be more prepared for it if you get it over with. And he's got so much more talent. I mean, I'm just putting him out there.
That's a good point. The part that everybody's all over the 9 tackles the other night. To me, he flew around and with his head down, launching at people. He didn't wrap up much.
No, he's a missile more than
I want to see some refinement there. I don't like a guy launching at people with his head down. I think that gets you
probably
hurt.
Get a penalty too.
Yeah,
and you might get hurt.
Yeah. I just think he needs work, but you're right.
He's definitely raw.
He has
definitely
the talent.
Very raw.
He has the talent, and it's up to Sean Desai, I guess, to see. But you brought up Jim Schwartz, and that's real quickly. That pertains to what we were talking about earlier with Myles Garrett. Even though the Browns didn't game plan for this either, but their defensive coordinator is Jim Schwartz, so they knew going into this practice a lot more.
That's true.
About what the Eagles' offense was, how it was going to work, and what was going to happen than the Eagles knew about the Browns. That's for sure.
Yeah. And plus, defensive line, Fletcher Cox was so happy to see Jim Schwartz. That defensive lineman love playing for Jim Schwartz.
Absolutely, yeah.
And Myles Garrett is probably happy as a what. So, I mean, that's part of it as well. They have Zadarius Smith now as well. I mean, they have a good defensive line. Yeah, but anytime the Eagles' offensive line gets whooped, I'm surprised. I mean,
oh, yeah. Yeah.
But from the other perspective, and that's where I want to go with you, Les, all of a sudden, it took longer than I expected, but Jalen Carter's starting to show up, man.
Yeah.
He is starting to show up. And the Cleveland offensive line is very good. And they could not deal with the Eagles' defensive front at all. Josh Sweat had a big practice. Jalen Carter making plays. That guy, it's hard to say because Javon Hargrave was a very good player here, but he's got so much more talent than Javon Hargrave. It is frightening. I don't want to bring up because you're seeing it on the other side with Myles Garrett. He's got Myles Garrett-like potential as an interior player. That the Eagles got something there if he, stays on the right path.
Right, that's exactly right. And the right path is, everybody knows they got him 9th overall because of the deal with the unfortunate, the terrible, horrible drag race incident in Georgia. He would have gone 2nd, 3rd, 4th overall. Probably
should have went first because it was Chicago. If he had no issues, Chicago has their quarterback, right? The young quarterback.
Yep.
So he would have went first if he had no issues.
Yeah. It is. It's amazing how much young talent there is on this team, and it's going to be real interesting. We're not thinking about this now because it's 2023 and not 2024, but 2024 comes along. We talk about the 4 guys that have played together for 10 years, Lane Johnson, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, and
Jason Kelsey.
Thank you. I'm old. This time next year, probably 3 of those guys aren't going to be here. And they're going to need a whole leadership changeover on this team. And I really do think, though, they have the talent I don't know about the leadership intangibles, but I think they can make that transition. As ridiculous as it seems, you're talking about all-time greats of the franchise that are probably gone after this year. And I honestly think they can replace them, which is phenomenal. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm through saying Jason Kelsey's done, though, because I've been saying it for so long.
Well, he didn't fool me last year. I didn't think
he got me again. He's got me.
He had one of the best years of his career last year. I thought there's no way he's quitting when he can play like this, and they didn't win the Super Bowl. You know, I think if he has injuries, if he struggles.
You know what, though? Now he's doing something with Amazon. He's doing a documentary. He's got a Tide thing going with his brother. He's got so much stuff. At some point, he's got to just say, all right, I got too much stuff to do. I can't play football anymore.
Maybe so, yeah.
Yeah, I think because he plays football, that's how he gets all that other stuff. So be very careful with that bouncing act.
That was a point Chris Long made to me a few years ago. He was doing his, he has that Water Boys charity for wells in Africa and stuff. And he was doing a lot with that at the end of his career with the Eagles. And what he said was, I have this platform because I'm an NFL player.
Right.
And even though I'm a prominent player, when I'm not a player anymore, it won't resonate. I won't get
that's a good point.
Same ability to get my message out that I have as an active player. And that kind of stuck with me. I think that's really true.
And Jason should keep that in the back of his mind. All right, Les, I'm going to take you down a road that is probably a little unfair, but John needs to practice because within 2 weeks, he's going to have the major competition of trying to figure out the Eagles 53-man roster against his fellow beat writers. There's, for me, 8 guarantees on the defensive line for the Eagles this year. 4 inside, 4 outside. And then you get down to that 9th guy. And it may be 10 guys. They may keep an extra inside guy. They may keep an extra outside guy. Or they may keep both. Who do you think has a better chance to make this team? Marlon Tuipulotu or Derek Barnett? If they're the two on the cutting room floor, one's in, one's out. They're keeping a 5th DT, but they can't afford to take a 5th edge guy, or they're taking 5 edge guys. Sorry, Marlon, we're going with the 4 big guys in the middle, Fletcher and our 2 Bulldogs and Milton Williams.
Yeah.
Who do you think's got a better grasp on a job right now, Marlon or Derek Barnett?
Well, one of the advantages of being retired is I don't have to look at contracts very much anymore. Maybe John can help me out here, but Derek Barnett?
Well, they redid Derek Steele, so I mean, to me, they're keeping them both. To me,
okay.
They're keeping 10 defensive linemen.
Oh, they're going heavy. They might keep 11. They might keep a Jomo.
Johnny, who's playing special teams?
Doesn't matter. You can.
Much like the running game. Nobody cares about stopping the run until you got to stop the run. Nobody cares about covering kicks and punts until you got to cover kicks and punts.
As Les knows, Les is a former champion as well for the roster prediction.
You won 1 year, Les?
I did. Yes.
I did not know that. Congratulations.
It's really not that hard when you get down to the final. Yeah.
You know what, though, Les? It's become a little bit more difficult for this reason. Now with the practice squad, you can put veteran players on the practice squad.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and that takes a lot of the suspense out of it because a lot of these veteran guys, teams aren't going to, especially at certain positions, they aren't going to disrupt their roster to bring in a guy that is really useful to the Eagles. But so it used to be the 53 was like a huge, if you cut a guy, God knows if you'd ever see him again. Now it's like, okay, he's not on the 53, but he'll be here Monday. I mean, it really is. To me, the things that really trip you up in that prediction thing now are will they keep 3 quarterbacks on the roster? the third guy will be there. He'll be there on the practice squad, but will they keep 3 on the? Those are the things that are really tricky.
But that's how you can manipulate. Like the Eagles don't have talent at linebackers, so why keep talent at linebacker? Put a couple guys on the practice squad,
right,
and keep the extra guy like a Jomo who you like on the defensive line. And then
meanwhile, you might pick up a linebacker and somebody else is cut down.
And the second part is it's not the final 53; it's the initial 53.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
So, once you get down to that, you're going to see more manipulation and
you
lead
get
up to
those
week
stupid,
1.
And I wish the Players Association had done something about this in the last CBA. The stupid, we don't want to guarantee this guy's contract for the whole season.
Yeah.
So he's off the team for week 1.
Yeah.
And week 2, hallelujah, he's back.
See, here's where you could lose this thing if you're back in it less. Here's where you can lose it. Rick Lovato. Like the Eagles could cut him. He's a vested veteran, so he doesn't have to go through waivers. You can do the wink, wink. Hey, Rick, we need the spot for Moro Ajomo, say. Wink, wink. We're going to bring you back as soon as, we can manipulate things, and you're going to be there week 1. He's not going to go out and sign with somebody else. They've already done it before. Other teams have done it with long snappers, veteran long snappers. You can do something like that. Dennis Kelly's in that category. Cut him, bring him back if you need him.
Right.
Bunch of guys. So that initial 53, honestly, is not as important as it once was, as Les points out, because the practice squad lets you, and Doug Peterson would say this all the time, when they changed the rule, it's not 53, it's 69. And it
but
really
I do
is.
think they keep Derek Barnett around. He had a stupid penalty, of course, but he played pretty well against the Ravens. And if you're not going to, I don't think they plan to rely on him, but to have around, sure. He's a first round pick. He has talent. He just hasn't ever really developed it the way he should have. But, I don't see a problem keeping him around. I think that's quite likely, unless he gets hurt again or something.
Yeah.
Are we going to be doing Birds 365 in 2025 and going, Derek Barnett was a first-round pick. You got to remember that he was a first-round pick. He's a good guy, and he works hard in practice. They like him.
Well, they're not going to, there's a difference. A few years ago, we were talking about Derek Barnett as a starter. We're not in that conversation. Is way over. We're talking about a guy who's going to play 10 snaps.
Well, and that's always difficult.
He's going to be a great practice squad keep.
Well, here's where at Les Bowen, here's where Jody and I differ with this. We both agree, like with TJ Edwards. I'll use TJ as an example. At some point, you got to leave the pedigree behind and say, this guy can play. I don't care if he's undrafted. He can stick and play. Now, with the opposite end of the spectrum, if you're a first-round pick, you could be Jalen Reagor, who just couldn't play. Or you can be Derek Barnett. You didn't live up to your hype as a first-round pick, but you're a solid rotational player.
Yeah, and you were talking, Jody, about him. Are we going to have him around as a practice squad? He's better than most practice squad defensive ends, I can tell you. I mean, any practice squad defensive end, I can tell you that.
So that's where, he gets hurt by the pedigree because he didn't live up. No question. He didn't live up to the billing as a first-round pick. There aren't a lot of debate.
There aren't a lot of, fifth defensive ends who are going to give you 6 sacks,
Yeah.
I think that what you need to live up to when you get into Derek Barnett's career is the paycheck. And you're right. The Eagles were able to negotiate it down. When Derek Barnett leaves, they're going to take cap hit. There was enough future years tacked on to that contract that they're going to take a pretty bad dead cap hit whenever Derek Barnett becomes the next Eagle. There's nothing they could do to wipe that out. That's on there, and that's sticking around.
And by the way, they could still trade him as well. So there's no need to, they need help other places. So
they really do. Yeah.
Maybe there's a team out, and there's a lot of teams that don't have the pass rush the Eagles do, to say the least.
A good point. Yeah.
And, you can move them that way. So it's a lot of options. But if they can't trade him, he's going to be here flat out. They're not cutting him. That's not happening. And I don't disagree.
Did I miss the Derek Barnett tackle against the Ravens on Saturday night, or did the NFL scorekeepers miss it? Because I didn't quite see it.
I saw him chasing the quarterback around. You know, that's kind of
there's two players, and actually, I'm actually stunned by how they've used Derek Barnett since he's been cleared.
Mm-hmm.
They're giving him first team reps. They're using him as a drop linebacker at times. I'm like, where's this coming from? And then Josh Sills, who I thought we'd never see again, gets acquitted from some very serious charges. And by the way, Landon Dickerson went down in practice yesterday. He's fine. So
I was going to ask you about that. That's concerning. He had his foot wrapped up or something when he came back, someone said.
He seemed fine. He was moving well. And the Eagles said if he misses practice today, hint, hint, he will. It's only precautionary. Yeah. But, they put
guy.
Yeah. They put Josh Sills in there getting first team reps already at left guard.
I guess, they did like him as a player before this whole horrible rape thing came up. It dates back to when he was in high school.
Yeah.
He was acquitted of criminal charges. You never know what that means. It could mean that this was really nothing all along.
Yeah.
Or it could just mean they can't prove that he's criminally responsible. I sure hope it isn't the latter.
We all hope
guy,
one
on the
thing
Eagles.
That Jeffrey Lurie has been consistent about this, and Les, he gives people second chances.
Yeah.
Now, all you can rely on, because we don't know, as you just pointed out, it could be either way.
Yeah.
It's the best system we have. He gets acquitted.
Right.
That's all you can do. I think that's the way the Eagles look at it.
Yeah.
And it's like, whether you go to Michael Vick, the most notable, but even Riley Cooper with his issues, and Deshaun Jackson. You remember Jeffrey's anti-Semitic stuff, and Jeffrey's obviously, that could have upset Jeffrey Lurie a lot, and he gave him another chance. He's been pretty consistent with that.
Yeah,
he will give
to
people
a point, but they don't have that. I saw a list last week of arrests by team for the last, 10 years, 15 years, and the Eagles were tied for the bottom.
Tied for last. Yeah,
they don't.
Well, that's a good point, because Darryl Worley
happened years and years
one.
ago. Nothing better happened while he's here. You remember that? Who was that corner?
Darryl Worley. Yeah, they got rid of him right away. Away. And who's the kickoff return? Josh Hubb. Remember that? Was the last. That was the last straw. So, but Jeff Stoutland clearly likes Josh Sills as a football player. Clearly, that's how he lost the roster challenge last year. I came in second because I picked Jack Anderson over Josh Sills.
Well, I liked Jack Anderson. Hey, he played well. He's playing somewhere now, I think.
He was with the Giants.
Yeah.
So, those Stoutland guys get picked up.
They do. That is absolutely the case. Yeah.
And that's pretty smart around the National Football League. And John, just to answer your question about what the Eagles are doing with Derek Barnett, 2 words, or is it 1 word? Showcase. That's what it is.
Possible.
That's a good
They're
thought.
trying to let people get some tape on Derek Barnett. Oh, yeah, maybe we should give up that day 3 pick to get our hands on Derek Barnett. That's
very possible. I thought,
or that linebacker that's a bubble guy for our team that might help the Eagles.
Yeah.
We shall see. Les, always a pleasure, bud. Go make sure the painters aren't stealing anything from the house. Your job is to keep the painters in line from here on in.
Bowen on the Birds. Listen to the podcast.
Yeah, we'll have John McMullen this Thursday.
Man, that's must-see. That's must-see stuff.
Les trying to drive listeners away.
He'll be following up Tim McManus, so he's got big shoes to fill.
T-Mac,
very nice. Les, always a pleasure, brother. Thanks for hopping in with us today.
Thanks, Les.
Les Bowen on the Birds podcast, where you get your better podcasts these days. All right, McMullen and McDonald coming back. I got a couple of quote-unquote national questions for John. A couple of big-name running backs finally inked deals yesterday. One has an immediate, as in game one.
Jody's excited about one of them, I would think.
Yeah, if he doesn't get suspended. But we'll talk about all of that when we come back. McMullen and McDonald here with Young Birds 365.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood days.
Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com. EAGLES, Eagles.
You got the Mac and Mac guys, John McMullen and Jody McDonald here with you on Birds 365. Eagles with a joint practice yesterday against the Browns. When we held his feet to the fire, Johnny Mac had to admit, if you had to call it a win or a loss, it would have been a loss to Browns yesterday. A slight loss, a close loss, wasn't a dominating performance. The defense is better on both teams, taking advantage of the offense, both the Browns defense against the Eagles, though, and vice versa. Defense got the better of it in both ways. But a slight nod to the Browns. Eagles will try and turn that around with another joint practice today at 5 o'clock. And we'll get our buddy Ed Kratz. Was good to hang with both John and Ed the other day when I got to actually go to an Eagles practice. That was fun. So we'll shoot the breeze with Eddie Kratz coming up in less than 20 minutes from now. All right, Johnny Mac, couple of big signings. Can you even have a big signing when it comes to running backs around the National Football League anymore? I'm not sure that I can use that word to describe it.
When you need them, yeah. The question is, can you get to a position where you need them? I think, like the Super Bowl. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Ezekiel Elliott has much left, to be honest. So I wouldn't be worried about the Patriots and the Eagles obviously going there week one. I don't think Zeke's got the burst. Cook is interesting because, the advanced numbers that all these, new age people look at say he was bad last year. But damn it, I saw 2 plays in 2 of the biggest games of the year. Everybody remembers the Buffalo game, the crazy Buffalo game where everybody called it the game of the year, and Justin Jefferson catch. And that game, he had an 80-yard touchdown. The Vikings were getting blown out. They were on the verge of getting blown out, and he turned the game around with an 80-yard touchdown where he just obviously outran everybody on the field. And these people are saying he's got no burst. He left, he's declining. And then in the other game, which ended up being the largest comeback in NFL history, they threw a bubble screen, my favorite play, Jody. And he took it 80 yards to the house. And if you watch that play on YouTube, he's just making people miss 60 yards down the field. And I say, this is where you need some context with these advanced numbers. Maybe it's their offensive line stunk, and that's why it's so many negative plays, because they couldn't block anybody, which has been a theme with that team pretty consistently. When you just take those, how could you have no burst and make those 2 plays? It doesn't make any sense to me. So I think Cook to the Jets is more relevant, far more relevant. I think he can still play. And obviously, I think the presence of Aaron Rodgers makes it even easier. So I think one is good, and I think one is pretty much probably not going to be good or bad. Not that Zeke is a bad player, but
right. I'm going to come to Zeke's defense here because you mentioned the new wave, new age numbers that the NFL uses, the analytics and like. They're nice, and it gives you added information, and I'm not going to smack talk them, but the old school numbers still hold value for me. Here's an old school number: 12 touchdowns for Ezekiel Elliott last year. 12. And I'm more concerned about Ezekiel Elliott's subtraction from the Dallas Cowboys than I am the addition of the Patriots. He's getting in middle of camp. There's going to be some time having to get him up to speed. Now he'll be fresh. He won't have any nicks or dings on him when we get to the first game of the season against the Eagles. But I'll go under 50 yards for Ezekiel Elliott in game number 1. I'm not fearing that he's going to be the reason the Eagles get out of the gate 0-1. But I think the Cowboys are still going to miss him. Tony Pollard had a breakout year last year, and that's why they slapped the franchise tag on him and gave him $10 million or whatever it was. But Tony Pollard was not the lead back of the Dallas Cowboys last year. And he better be the lead back of the Dallas Cowboys this year, because I don't love any of the other backs the Cowboys have. For me, they did not replace Zeke Elliott. Going out and getting Deuce Vaughn, who's a nice, exciting player, little Darren Sproles like 5
By the way, Darren was at practice yesterday. So
he's at the Eagle practice?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, still a consultant for the Eagles. He was at practice yesterday. Yeah, good to see Darren.
Yeah, good to see him. Now you're taking me off my.
Sorry,
no. But the reason I'm saying you're taking me off is because now I got a question. What does a consultant like Darren Sproles actually do for the Eagles?
Every once in a while, he shows up to talk to the running backs and punt returners mainly. Yeah, other than that, yeah. I think a couple of years ago he was around more, and I think he was trying to decide if he wanted to get into coaching. And then he's not around nearly as much, but that's why it was kind of surprising to see him yesterday. But yeah, the Eagles garb on, he was helping out. But I don't think I think he decided he didn't want to get into coaching.
Now really far afield. What do you think somebody like that gets paid to show up 10 times a year?
That I have no idea. Probably pretty well. Probably, not like he did when he played, but for a normal person, probably pretty well.
Okay. Well, I got to see if I can get me one of those gigs. I'm doubting it highly, but I may have to do some research on that to find out when you get paid to show up 10 times a year and slap some backs and lend some expertise. Not that I have any expertise to lend. But I'm telling you, Johnny Mac, and the Cowboys got good news yesterday, which is bad news for the Eagles. They did get the contract of Zach Martin successfully advanced, renegotiated, call it what you want. That could have been a bit of an issue if he held out right up until the first game of the season, got zero work done in for the preseason, and then he's that good that he could probably come in and be fine, but you're much more susceptible to injuries if you get no work in prior to the season. They got him done with 2 preseason games to go and probably joint practices this week. I don't know if they'll take part in it, but next week he probably will. That's a plus for the Cowboys. I was hoping that from an Eagle perspective, that was a potential minus, but they did get that done. But mark my words, the Cowboys are going to miss Ezekiel Elliott. If for no other reason, in the red zone, he was a power guy who could score touchdowns, did 12 times last year. If you're just going to run Tony Pollard into the ground every time you get inside the 6-yard line, Tony Pollard might not make it to all 17 games.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you with Tony Pollard. I mean, he did have quite a few touches last year. I was just looking it up. It was he
not
really
as many as Zeke.
No, Zeke was they ran the ball a lot. Zeke was 231 and 17 receiving, so 248, and Pollard was 193 and 39. So it was very close because he's a better receiver, Pollard. As far as touches go, it was basically 50-50. With Zeke, yeah, he's a good short yardage runner, but I mean, I can't worry about short yardage at this stage. You know what number? You know what old school number concerns me in this era more than other eras? 3.8 yards per carry. Remember, Jody, how many teams play the Fangio defense, and they don't even give a crap unless they'll give you 4 yards. They think that's a win. That number concerns me. And I just don't think, I think they ran him into the ground. I mean, before, his first 3 years, it was 322 runs, 242, and you say that's not bad. Yeah, but he only played 10 games, so it was 24 a game because he was banged up. 304 in 15 games, 301 in 16 games. I mean, they just ran him. He was a great player at that time, and it was, he started out 5.1, 4.1's not good, but he was 4.7, 4.5, and then it's been a decline. Last year, the first time under 4 yards a carry. In this era, that number concerns me.
But it works both ways. I say there's something as far as value goes when you get a guy who can take that pounding and keep rolling.
Oh, I agree with that.
And he does that. So this year, Tony Pollard's going to be asked to touch the ball, call it touches, more than he ever has in his career. He's been on the increase, while finally last year Zeke came on the decrease and still was the guy who touched the ball more than anybody else on the Cowboys all year long. So this year, you're going to ask Pollard to carry it, to catch it, to touch it more than anybody else. And remember, he ended last season injured. You think Pollard's going to make all 17 games for the Cowboys this year?
Well, that's my concern with Pollard. I mean, he's not nearly as stout as Ezekiel Elliott. And yeah, I mean, already, as I said last year, Zeke was at 240, he was at 230, whatever it was. So he's right there as far as touches. Can that continue with his frame? And it's interesting because he's a Memphis guy, Tony Pollard. Kenny Gainwell's a Memphis guy. I have the same questions with the Eagles. But Tony at least has performed. That's where I give the Eagles. Like, Tony Pollard's a good player. There's no question.
Cowboys slapped the franchise tag on him. He's one of the highest paid running backs in the league.
Yeah. He was over 1,000 yards last year. He's a good receiver out of the backfield. Over 5 yards a carry. He's a good player. We know that. We don't know that about Kenny Gainwell yet. And we don't know if Kenny can handle even the workload Tony Pollard has held. DeAndre Swift, this is his 4th year, Jody. 4th year. He's topped out at 617 yards. He's missed 4 games a year. And we all know Rashad Penny's injury history. So do I have questions about his long-term durability? Yes. But I know Tony Pollard can play when he's out there. I don't know that about the Eagles' backs.
Right. No, I'm not going to say the Eagles have a back that comps to Pollard. You're right. Pollard rushed for 1,000 yards. He did so in a backfield where he got the ball less than the other running back did. Ezekiel Elliott got more runs than Pollard did, and Pollard still got 1,000. So I'm not questioning Pollard's talent level. What I'm questioning is the pounding that Pollard's going to take this year, because he is going to be the number 1 back. And he is going to be the guy who's going to have to, when you got to pound it in from the 5-yard line, because the other team's playing Fangio plus and daring you to run the ball from the 5-yard line. Somebody's got to take it in. Ezekiel Elliott did it to the tune of 12 touchdowns last year.
And I agree with you from a durability standpoint. I have some concerns with Tony Pollard, but I'll throw it this way, since we're, it's all about Eagles here. Who do you have more concerns over? Who would you bet on being the most durable between Pollard, Gainwell, Swift, and Penny?
Oh, the most durability question is, of course, Penny, because he's hurt every year. But here's you got to take it to the next step. If Penny gets hurt, then what? Well, you give it more to Swift, or you give it more to Gainwell, or Trey Sermon lives up to the reputation that the coach is trying to paint for him. If Tony Pollard goes down with injury, where are the Cowboys going? The Eagles have options. The Cowboys have bigger questions. I think the Eagles have some question marks. I think the Cowboys have bigger question marks at running back if Tony Pollard ends up getting hurt. Do you not agree with that?
Yeah, I don't love their depth. I don't know much about it, to be honest. Certainly with Deuce Vaughn, I mean, he's the most high profile because people know him from college and, whatever, his dad's on the coaching staff and all that stuff in the draft. But to me, that, he's a really small guy. I don't even know if he's going to be their backup running back. I mean, but the other names they have are not guys that are going to wow you. At least the Eagles backups. I'm trying to look them up. Malik Davis, I know they like. I don't know anything about Malik Davis.
What's Malik Davis's NFL resume?
Exactly. Rico Dowdle, nothing, So, yeah.
If I remember Rico Dowdle, weren't the Cowboys the Hard Knocks team?
Probably. They've done it a bunch.
I think I remember Rico Dowdle being one of the guys he was a rookie who was trying to make the team. And that's what I remember about him. He was part of the Hard Knock show because last year was.
I remember from South Carolina, he was a pretty good college player, but I don't think he's done anything in the pros. But if you're looking for, he's a bigger back, I think he's got some size to him. So maybe that helps him when it comes to their sort of complementary aspect. But all those guys are unproven, every single one of them. And the Eagles backups at least have some production. But if I'm going to trust one of the 4 to be healthy and be there week in and week out, I got to be honest, it's going to be Pollard over Gainwell, Swift, and Penny.
Here's a legit question for you, and I see our boy Eddie Kratz is ready to jump in with us. If you're the Dallas Cowboys and you've got Rico Dowdle and Malik Davis, Deuce Vaughn is going to be there, but he might not be ready to be your number 1 back. If Pollard goes down for 2 weeks, somebody's got to be your number 1 back for 2 games. Would you rather have Rico Dowdle, Malik Davis, or Trey Sermon?
And maybe they'll get Trey Sermon.
That's what I'm saying. If Trey Sermon isn't on the roster,
I haven't seen
be a Dallas Cowboy claim, Johnny Mac.
With all due respect to Nick Sirianni, and Ed Kratz will correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't seen Trey Sermon make a damn play in training camp or a game. So I don't know, I don't know if he is better than Malik Davis or Rico Dowdle. They're in the same category to me. All unproven, completely unproven.
How about the average yards per carry last year for Trey Sermon?
What do you have? 2 carries?
Yeah, but I think he was like 9 yards per.
Yeah, like 8. Yeah, I think he's 2 for 17. So 8.5.
Towers over all Dallas Cowboy running backs and average yards.
That's pretty good.
That's
if you expostulate that out, that's pretty good. If you can get 8.5 for a whole season, that's pretty good.
Sample size is kind of a key there. We'll agree on that. He's McMullen. I'm McDonald. That makes us Mac and Mac. Joining us next, Special Ed Kratz. You better stay right here with us.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Mac and Mac here with you on Birds 365. We got our guy, Eddie Kratz, to join us and give us his Eagle insight for the next half hour or so. Ed Kratz, I will spell a word for you. I need you to pronounce it for me. M-A-U-V-E.
Well, I'm glad it's not expostulation like the word John used.
I just made that one
right.
up too.
Yeah, I don't know what in the world that was. I would say Mauve.
Oh, you're the same as him.
Yeah.
I think it's just
mauve. I think it's mauve. I'm not positive.
You guys are overselling. I just think it's mauve.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Will today's Eagle practice be a mauve practice or an orange or a green or a red or an indigo or a violet? What color designation will be the joint practice with the Browns today?
So mauve is a color? I wasn't.
Yeah, it is a color.
It's kind of a purple.
It is a color. That I do know. That's why I said it. I should have went with a color I was familiar with. I probably should have went indigo.
How
How about avocado? Is that a
We
color?
all know how to pronounce indigo. Yeah, let's stick with that. But give us your read from yesterday's joint practice. Johnny Mack said, damn close, but if you had to call a winner, it would have been the Cleveland Browns by this much. Do you agree with his evaluation of yesterday's joint practice?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I thought both defensive lines were very, very good.
Yes.
But it was close. I think that's kind of the consensus, is the Browns won by a teeny tiny bit. But it was really close. I mean, you could look at it the other way too, but I would probably go the Browns just by a hair, something none of us are familiar with here. But I would say by a hair, the Browns won that practice.
Yeah.
And let me just go back to the break, or prior to the break, when you guys were talking about that collection of backup running backs and Trey Sermon. John, you're forgetting Trey Sermon had the 2-yard touchdown run in Baltimore the other night.
Well, yeah, come on.
And he
2
ran,
yards is not
he ran for 2.3 2.3 per carry on 8 carries.
Yeah.
So put that into the mix.
That pales in comparison to his 9.5 yards per carry last year on those 2 all-important carries that he had.
Well,
so he's going backwards.
Look, this whole Trey Sermon thing, I think, stems from Nick in the offseason bringing him up, and then sort of unprompted, Ed. But now during training camp, he doesn't bring him up. People ask him questions about him, and then he'll answer the questions. I don't see this giant push from Trey Sermon. Have you seen it? I don't see it. I think it's clearly the top 4 guys, and he's 5th. Now the Eagles keep rotating him in with the other 4, and I'm talking about obviously Kenny Gainwell, DeAndre Swift, Rashad Penny, Boston Scott. But I think there's a clear demarcation line there. What might help him, though, is he's younger. He's under team control for a longer period of time. And I keep bringing up with Rashad Penny. Look, he's not going to be here next year. No matter what, he's not going to be here. If he plays well, somebody's going to pay him more than the Eagles will. And if he plays poorly, well, you don't want him back. So,
yeah, I mean, Kenny Gainwell might not, or DeAndre Swift might not be here next year.
Exactly.
Either.
Yeah.
He's on a 1 year. I mean, you've got a lot of 1-year deals here. So, yeah, maybe that plays into it. I think Sermon came in 2021. He was a 3rd-round pick.
Of San Francisco. Yeah.
So, yeah, he's got this year and next year left on his rookie deal. So, yeah, maybe that does help him. But right now, he does kind of look like, he would be the odd man out unless you get rid of Penny. But, I think Swift, Gainwell, and Scott, they're secure in their spots. But it's Penny and Sermon that you're going to have to decide between, because they're not going to carry 5. And I guess they'll carry 4, which seems like an awful lot. But they would be the 4 to me, and Sermon and Penny are, battling for that 4th spot.
No Kennedy Brooks after the big fumble.
Yeah, Kennedy's
Baltimore.
got some work to do.
Kennedy might not even be on the practice squad.
No.
And by the way, Trey Sermon under team control, with the way the Eagles value backs, that might be a negative. That they would rather have the flexibility of just 1-year deal. We'll re-put it back together again next year. I don't know that Trey Sermon has helped his cause so far with this preseason. All right, Ed, I'm going to give you a chance. Johnny went there yesterday. I want to say Tanner McKee is certainly locked up the 3rd quarterback job with his impressive performance the other night, and Ian Book's less than impressive. Any scenario whereby these next couple of weeks, more preseason games, that Tanner McKee is breathing down Marcus Mariota's neck for backup duties at some point during this year, or is that completely out of the question?
No, I mean, I actually put that in the story when I wrote about Tanner McKee coming out of the game. Is he's past Book, and could he sometime here soon pass Mariota? And I don't think so. I really don't. I think Mariota's got that job pretty much locked up unless he gets hurt. And hopefully he won't. But that job is Mariota's. He's got the experience. He's got a skill set that's similar to Jalen Hurts in that he can run the football. We saw him do that a little bit in Baltimore. We've seen him do it all through camp. So He can run pretty much the same offense that Jalen Hurts can. Tanner McKee can gain some yards with his feet, but he's one of those long loping quarterbacks. He's like Nick Foles when he takes off running, you time him with a sundial. But I think McKee could certainly be the number 2 heading into next season. Mariota's only here for a 1-year deal. He's probably going to look to get a starting job after this season. I don't know who will give him one, but he certainly can look and try to get one. But I think for this season, it'll be Mariota. And then McKee will be the backup heading into next year. He talked about team control. He's on his rookie contract first year. So they've got him for, several more years, and they'll develop him, and he could end up being a trade piece, kind of like what they did with, was it Kevin Cobb or someone that they developed and traded.
AJ Feely.
AJ, I mean, they've done that. So he could be that guy, in a couple of years. He could be someone that you'd look to trade if he continues to develop. I mean, listen, there was only one preseason game. There's no fun not overreacting, but we have to be careful not to be overreacting. So we'll see how the rest of the summer goes for Big Tanner McKee.
And by the way, Ed, it just came to me. Extrapolate. That's what I was looking for. But, the 3 fields and all the ADD action, it's very difficult. I'm very tired. So I couldn't come up with extrapolate.
I thought expostulate was like a gym.
I just made it up.
I just made it up through, and
I don't make up a word that sounds right. You had me, John.
I was close, and Ed had to call me out on it. Thanks, Ed.
Well, like I said, I thought I was asleep when they taught that in geometry class in high school.
No, you were not.
I'm calling you both out on your.
You were right to call me out on that. But
and I'm calling you both down on your pronunciation of Moab.
And a lot of mistakes. I blame the Eagles and the Browns for all the too much activity going on.
Yeah.
But the thing, getting back to Tanner McKee, what impressed me most about him versus Ian Book, he trusted himself, man. Back foot, boom, ball's out. And he trusted his receivers, where Ian Book's, who's got more experience, running around, afraid to throw the football.
Yeah.
But one of the guys who helped Tanner McKee was Tyree Cleveland, I thought. To me, we never talk about Tyree Cleveland. We talked a lot about, not a lot, but a decent amount about Joseph Nada. I think he's better than Joseph Nada. He's better than Jaden Hazelwood. All those big young receivers. I think Tyree Cleveland is the best of the lots. And that means if there's an injury, look, I don't think they're going to keep him. He might be on the practice squad. But if there's an injury, and already Quez Watkins and Britton Covey are dealing with hamstrings, I think Tyree Cleveland's the next guy. Where are you with those young receivers?
Yeah, I mean, I went into that game against the Ravens looking for Joseph Nada. He was one of my players to watch. I thought, they had worked him a little bit on the first team on that Thursday practice going down to Baltimore. So I thought, hey, he's someone that you have to watch. And then, he gets one catch. I think he had 4 targets. So didn't really shine. But Tyree Cleveland has some experience in this league, right? I think he was a
Denver.
Pick of the Broncos. Yeah. So, he's played in some games. He knows how to get open. And I would say, Deion Kane, I thought was going to be an interesting watch. And then he hurt his ankle. I know he returned in a limited form against the Browns last night. But I would say not so fast on Tyree Cleveland making this roster. Like you mentioned, Quez and Britton Covey both have the hamstring. Now, I think based on what I saw last night, Quez might be a little further ahead than Covey. Covey had that long sleeve on one of his legs, and he seemed to be, kind of walking gingerly at points, whereas Quez was actually catching balls off the jug machine, on one knee. So he seemed to be doing a little bit more than Covey. So, listen, if you want to start the season with Covey on the IR, and have him miss whatever you miss with the IR these days, 3 or 4 games before you can.
Well, you got to keep him on the first. If you put him on IR before, then he's done for the season. So you have to do that little manipulation.
But I could see them doing something like that in a way to try to keep Tyree Cleveland. I even saw them giving Tyree Cleveland some reps as the gunner on the punt return last night. I know Zach McPherson is very good at being a gunner on the punt.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
But I saw Cleveland taking some reps as the gunner too. So, they're going to see what they have in him. And I would say not so fast on him making this roster. I think he has improved his stock. Again, here we are overreacting after one game in Baltimore, but I think his stock has improved greatly. And I think they're taking a closer look at him now, thinking, hey, maybe, we should keep this guy around, because now that other teams have seen what he can do, and probably will see what he can do in these next couple games, he may not make it to the practice squad if that's where they try to get him. So I would say they're taking a pretty good hard look at Cleveland, and I wouldn't be so fast to write him off in terms of finding a roster spot here.
I'll give you Nada, Cleveland, and Greg Ward. I'll give you the combined efforts of all three, under over more receptions than John Hightower this year.
Is John Hightower in the league? I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Chargers.
Oh, yeah. He's looked good in Charger camp. I did a Charger preview on my CBS Sports radio show, not this past weekend, the weekend before. Said John Hightower, best looking receiver in Charger camp. And they got some guys who can play in Charger camp.
That's absurd, by the way.
Well,
I don't know who you got. Jody, I don't want to call out who you had on the show.
Cleveland, Nada, and I'll throw Greg Ward in. I give you all three of them, and I'll take John Hightower with more catches than the three of them combined this year.
Well, I mean, come on. But my point is, and I don't want to call out
that sounds like a pass from John McMullen.
I don't want to call out the guy you had on your show, but I mean, come on. Keenan Allen's on the Chargers. Nick Sirianni never stops talking about that guy. Mike Williams is on the Chargers. Quentin Johnson's on the Chargers.
First round draft pick, yeah. The guy who has opened more eyes than anyone in Charger camp, John Hightower.
Yeah. I don't book that guy again.
Don't you remember that happened here in Philadelphia? People were gaga over John Hightower. He was going to be the next all-time great Eagle receiver.
Not me. Games. I can't talk for other people.
Well, he had the speed, and that was the year the Eagles wanted speed. They went into the draft saying we want speed, and that's why they took Rager, and that's why they took Hightower and Quez. And he caught a track team. I think he had 2 or 3 catches during his time in Philadelphia, and one was a deep throw. I think it was against Washington.
And went right through his hands. Yeah.
Well, he did catch one, though, and then I think he dropped another. But sometimes it takes guys some time to figure it out in this league.
By the way, remember, Ed, that was the year they signed Marquise Goodwin, who finally showed up. I finally saw him.
Yeah, in the Browns uniform.
He signed during the COVID year, and they had this track team. The Eagles would have won any 4x100 race in the NFL because Goodwin's a former Olympic, either hurdler or sprinter, something. And they signed him, or they traded for him. I forget how they got him, but he opted out. He was one of the guys who opted out because of COVID. Never even showed up to the NovaCare complex. Yeah, it was a trade. Then the Eagles rescinded the trade. And I saw him yesterday. Finally showed up.
That was the 49ers, I think. He was
49ers.
He had a deal for him. But, hey, they still got some speed. Devin Allen isn't going to take a backseat to him.
No, that's true.
I wouldn't be surprised to see him get a little more time on Thursday night against the Browns. But, John Hightower, I didn't even know he was in the league, Jody, so I can't really, in good conscience, say, he's going to have more catches.
Make a mental note to check in every once in a while if he's getting any reps with the Chargers. I
will.
Just saying.
All right, back to the joint practices. No more John Hightower talk. Are you concerned at all? Best offensive line in football. The Cleveland Browns, specifically Myles Garrett, who was one hell of a football player, they beat the Eagles' offensive line like a drum. I did not see that coming. I counted 7, maybe 8 sacks for the Browns against
Myles Garrett. Probably had 7 or 8 all by himself.
That's not good. What the heck happened?
It's Jim Schwartz, man. Jim Schwartz. The beauty of Jim Schwartz, he knows this offensive line. He knows where its pressure points are. He knows how to take advantage of it. I even saw some times where the Browns were throwing some blitzes at the Eagles. So, you come into these things and you don't know what you're going to get. You have to make some adjustments during practice. And, I'm sure that they looked at the practice tape last night and they saw some of the things the Browns did. So, you hope the Eagles offensive line can rebound from yesterday's performance. And, they lost, obviously, Landon Dickerson early. So you threw Sua Opeta out there, who I'm still not sold on. I'm not sure how he's still
Tesla stock.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then they put Josh Sills in there in the later sessions. And I thought Sills, listen, I'm a big Sills guy as a player. I think he could start.
Yeah, you got to clarify that.
Yeah. I think he could start on a few teams in this league. And, the line, seemed a little bit better with him in there. But it was Myles Garrett that just wreaked havoc all practice long until he left with what looked like a foot injury. Mary Kay Cabot with the Cleveland.com said that he got kicked, just like Jason Kelce got kicked. So, you don't know if it's intentional kicking or if it's just inadvertent in a pileup. But I'm not concerned, John, about the offensive line of the Eagles. I mean, they've got a body of work to lean on, and it's a good test. It's not like they're keeping score.
Plus, to be fair, you're not going to see Myles Garrett every week.
Right. He's the best defensive player in the league, even better than Bosa in San Francisco and, Reddick here in Philadelphia. I think Myles Garrett's the best defensive player in the league.
All right, so I'm gonna throw a hypothetical your way. Ed, you first, but Johnny, I want you to answer as well. Week 1, Patriots, second possession of the game, Jason Kelce gets stepped on and turns an ankle, and it balloons up on him. And even the warrior that is Jason Kelce, he can't even walk on it. So he sure as hell can't play on it. So he's done for the day. Maybe not the next week, but he's done for the day with 3+ quarters left to play in football. How are they reconfiguring the offensive line for the rest of that opener against the Pats?
Yeah, I think they would probably move Cam Jurgens over in game and put Tyler Steen in at right guard and then reevaluate during that week what they would do against – well, it's a short week too. They come back in 4 days and have to play the Vikings. So, you're going to have to make some quick decisions there. But I think in game they'd probably slide Cam Jurgens over and put probably Tyler Steen in or maybe Josh Sills if Sills is – past Steen.
Jack Driscoll, don't forget Jack.
Yeah, they're working him at tackle. I mean, they seem to want him to kind of be the top reserve swing tackle.
But I mean, in game, you're only going to dress 8. I think they might have more comfort level with Jack at this point. Yeah. But it's hard to accept Jody's hypothetical there because Kelce's coming back unless you cut off the ankle. He's coming back. But
and even
if he doesn't play,
it's the size of a cantaloupe. I'm sorry.
If he doesn't play, Cam's going to be the center. And then it's like, all right, who's up? Number 1. Are you dressing Steen early in the season?
Has Cam Jurgens taken any snaps at center this summer?
Yeah.
Yes.
Very few. They haven't had maintenance days because they built them in this year. So remember, we'd have those big maintenance days for Kelce and all. They kind of built them into the schedule with the walkthroughs and all that kind of stuff. But there were a couple practices where they rested Kelce, Lane. I think it's just Kelce and Lane. Was it maybe Lane? No, Kelce, Lane, Landon in the practice. And in that instance, Jurgens played center, Steen played right guard, Driscoll played right tackle. So he has taken some reps.
Even Jurgens said he's taken some reps at center, just to keep his head still in it. So, I think he would be the guy, even though they don't like to disrupt 2 positions to cover for 1 injury. I think it's a no-brainer that he would be the center. That's what he was drafted here to do. And they have guys that can play guard. And I'm not sure Josh Andrews is going to make this team, but he's been, a true pro since getting here to be the backup center. I thought he looked good against the Ravens. He's certainly making the snaps look better than what Brett Toth was able to do when he was the backup center. So I'm not sure they'll have Josh Andrews on this team. If they do, I'm not sure they would even turn to Josh Andrews if Kelce would get hurt.
I'm gonna hamper it down. So I'm gonna take Jody's. Here's the bigger question to me, and because this is if Kelsey gets banged up in a game and leaves for a while, but there's hope that he could come back, then I think they might not move 2 positions. In other words, they might keep Cam. If they think Kelsey's coming back and they only need 10, 15 snaps from, then I think they might use somebody else at center and keep Cam at right
Yeah,
guard.
but wait. You definitely avoided that and you didn't name a name.
Well, I'm trying to think who they're going to dress. They're only going to dress 8 people. And they're not as good.
Josh Andrews isn't going to be one of them.
No,
and he's been doing most of the backup center work here. So somebody's got to snap the ball for those 15 snaps.
So I'm trying to figure out
who would that be.
Who I'm trying to.
I think Driscoll and Steen would probably be 2 of those guys that they would dress.
Well, Driscoll, no doubt. I mean, Driscoll, and then it's like that's why I'm concerned about this team. It might be Josh Sills, but yeah. You're not going to have a backup center to dress, so it's got to be Cam Jurgens.
It's got to be Jurgens. Yep,
got to be because you're not even going to dress a guy who can be because Josh Andrews isn't dressing.
Nope.
Julian Good-Jones isn't dressing.
No.
Brett Toth isn't dressing, and if he was, they don't want to play in center.
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't given Sills some center ups. I know he just got here last week, and maybe that's in the plan, but he can play center. I mean, Josh Sills can play center if need be, but we haven't seen that. But
no,
like I said, he's only got here. He's only been here a week, so.
But this is when we tell we're in the preseason portion because Kelsey's playing. Period.
Yeah.
End of sentence.
Eddie, I'm going to put you to the test here. And John references, not often, but every once in a while, the competition between the beat guys on trying to figure out who are going to be the original 53-man roster of the Eagles. And John takes a couple victory laps because he's won and bemoans Josh Sills last year, said he cost them the contest. Well, I'm back at Ed Kratz this year. I'm believing that if you're in the contest, you're going to win, Eddie K. You've got my seal of approval.
Let's do it. Thank you.
How many defensive linemen are they going to keep? Inside, outside, edge, and we're not considering any of the edge players as linebackers. So you know what I mean when I say defensive linemen.
Yep.
How many are they going to keep? I'm not even asking you who the individuals are. I'm just asking you what the overall number is. How many defensive linemen they keep it on the 53?
I'm going to say, I'm going to say, I'm looking at my
Ed
list.
figures it out. I'm going to say, is shitload a number? Because they're keeping a shitload.
I'm counting 8. I have my roster right in front of me.
That's it?
8.
I'm going to beat Ed.
They keep it more than 8. John said he thinks it could be 11.
Yeah.
I think it's either 9 or 10. The question is, are they going to keep, and the 9 and 10 for me are Derek Barnett and Marlon Tuipulotu. If they're only keeping 9, one of those guys got to go. If they're keeping 10, chances are both of them make it. John thinks that Ojomo
Ojomo's
going to
make it
onto the roster, which means they're going to keep 11 defensive linemen. And then I say, who the hell's covered punts? If you got 11 defensive linemen on the roster,
I think it's too many. I really do. I mean, listen, here we go. Graham is one. Okay, Jordan Davis, Fletcher Cox, Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, Derek Barnett, Jalen Carter, and Marlon T. They're my 8. And then after that, you have Janarius Robinson, Noah Ellis, Moro Ojomo.
Milton Williams?
Huh?
You do Milton Williams?
Oh, yeah. He's on my 8. Absolutely.
Yeah, Milton.
He was picked yesterday.
The 2 big Georgia guys inside, Fletcher and Milton Williams inside. So that's 4 inside. Outside, Sweat, Graham, Hassan Reddick, and
he's
Smith.
He's a linebacker. See, you said just defensive lineman.
Wow, that's what
I count him.
That's what I said. Hassan Reddick and Smith don't count as linebackers; they count as defensive.
Yeah,
linemen.
I'm counting the edge
that's 10 for sure.
Yeah,
I was counting those guys as outside linebackers,
okay. And that's why I'm at 11 because I'm counting the edge rushers.
Well, who's the 11th?
Ajomo's going to make the team. They're not going to.
I don't know. I wasn't too impressed with him against the Ravens, but he was a draft pick.
I think they love Ajomo and they like to keep their picks.
They like to keep their picks. I mean, we've seen them cut their picks, but maybe he's a practice squad guy. I don't know, but Ojomo's on the bubble for me. But yeah, if you count Smith and Reddick, I'm definitely at 10.
You're at 10.
Yeah, for sure.
That's why I said there's a boatload. Hell, he's hurt now. Patrick Johnson was playing well.
Yeah,
I texted that executive. He said they have 16 or 17 NFL defensive front people, because I'm counting the edge rushers. Janaris Robinson belongs in this league. He's not going to make this team. Contavious Street belongs in this league.
Not going to make this team.
He's not going to make this team. They are so loaded. Kyron Johnson should be an NFL player. How's he going to make this team?
Is Patrick Johnson going to be stashed on IR?
No, he's healthy.
Hurt?
He seems like he's walking around pretty good to me. He's got a little wrap on his left ankle. He seems to be moving fine. When he's
I don't think they can do it. You can't do that anymore. You have to have documentation. Back in the old days, the Redskins would, the George Allen Redskins would place like 15 guys on injured reserve. You can't do that anymore. You have to have like real documentation and prove that somebody's injured. And Patrick Robinson, he's hurt now, but it's not a major injury, which thankfully, because he was carted off. But
do you remember the Welcome Back Cotter days? Is Epstein's mother still available?
Yeah, a little well done.
All right, now wait a minute. We got to do this one quickie before we get out of here and let you run. I trust Ed Kratz, and Kratz I trust. Pronounce the name of the defensive tackle who was brought in here for the next 2 weeks of practice, and he's just another Philadelphia Eagle defensive lineman who's not going to be on the roster when the season starts. Please pronounce the newest Philadelphia Eagles name.
Wow, that's
Olive. How about that?
I'm pretty sure it's not Olive. I think you got it wrong to begin with before you ever get to the last name.
Phonetically, Ed is correct.
Olive is his first name.
I think it's Olive Sagapulu.
I'm going to go. Nice. Yeah, I don't think that the last name's that difficult. I think it is Sagapulu. The Samoan pronounce.
I think it's Olive.
What's the Samoan pronunciation of olive? That's what you have to crack. That's the code you have to crack.
I think it's expostulate is how you say it.
Yeah. Well, but you guys are going with mauve. I'm going with mauve, and you go with olive. I'll go with olive, and we'll meet back here tomorrow and find out exactly who got it right.
I don't think he was there yesterday. Did you notice him out there, Jim?
I was all brown.
How do you miss him? He's 335 pounds. He's a DT. He's a nose tackle. You can't miss him, Ed.
I missed him.
I see the Eagles every day, so I was focused more on the Browns.
There's a good chance he wasn't there. But when you see Olive today, please tell him.
By the way, ask Rick Saratella. Rick Saratella had him. They were working him out, so he knows.
Really,
Rick will know how to pronounce his name.
I'll shoot a text to Mr. Saratella. I'll shoot a text to you, Kratz, as well, to say thank you for joining the show today. We will do this again soon. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for calling me out, Ed. I appreciate it.
You got it, my
Olive.
friend.
Repeat after me. Olive. We will Olive the show in just a couple of minutes. Ed Kratz will Olive now.
Well done.
We'll come back and put a bow on the show on Birds 365.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
Heading down the shore. Have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood days.
Up with this anymore.
Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com. EAGLES, Eagles.
Mac and Mac running out of time here on Birds 365. Johnny
By the
Mac
way,
going
Jody,
back.
Apologies. You are correct. It is mauve.
Mauve. Yes,
Mauve.
I was pretty sure.
Can you
about
hear
that.
this?
The new Eagle
Can
defensive
you hear
lineman.
that? Can you hear that?
I heard you. Why?
I didn't know if you could hear.
Say mauve. No, you said mauve. I got mauve. It is mauve. We're all going with mauve. But someone on the stream gave us their believed pronunciation of the newest Eagles defensive lineman, Olive. I
like that. I like that.
I said Olive. You went with the obvious Olive. You and
no.
Eddie
Well,
Kratz.
I did not. I did not go with Olive. I was joking around. I said you got to get the Samoan pronunciation. I think whoever it was, I think he's
come on.
correct.
You're pals with Main Event Jimmy. Send him off a text and.
Well, that's the thing. The Anawai family, which is the famous wrestling family. That's how you pronounce it, Anawai, and it's spelled Anoai, I believe. So. Some of those Samoan pronunciations can be, but yeah, Olibe, I guess would be my guess. Is that what he guessed?
No, I went with Olive. He's going with, I went with Olive. He's going with Olive.
Yeah, I think.
And then we got another one that's O-L-E-V. No, you're going to have to call. We're going to have to come up
Olive. I'm going to go Olive.
You going Olive?
Yeah.
All right. And I do have one Samoan question. Didn't think we were going here today. Every once in a while, there is an N that pops up in a pronunciation, like Tua Tungavaloa. There's no N in his name, but when you pronounce it, you can certainly hear the N. Is there a possibility that our newest player is Olivien? That there's an N in there.
There's anything.
There's a Samoan N that just appears like what the hell is the kid's name? The former Clemson quarterback who now is at Oregon.
No, I can't even attempt. I've never learned.
I used to be able to say that. Now I can't even think of his
TJ,
name. If I thought of it, I could remember it.
TJ.
Uyunglele.
Yeah,
there's an N that just shows up out of nowhere. It's not actually written in his
Where
name.
is he now? Didn't he go like to Oregon State?
Oregon State, yeah, he transferred.
Yeah.
DJ Uyunglele. I practiced.
Boy, I thought he was going to be.
I thought he would be the first pick of the draft. He's now
I thought he was going to be great.
Just to continue to play football.
I thought he was going to be great, and I'm glad.
Same here.
I feel bad for the kid that he hasn't developed, but yeah, I'm glad I don't have to try to pronounce his name.
He'll be at a camp next year, but he will not be a first
Sometimes with some of the Samoan names too, I think they Americanized them to make it easier for idiots like me, with that kind of stuff.
Like Tua Tagovailoa, like
well,
no, those guys are not simplifying anything.
No, but with some of the more simpler names, I think they try to make it easier for us, but I don't know that for sure. Like I bring up the Anawai family. That's weird.
They simplified it by going Uso, which was very nice for everybody.
Yeah,
everybody could pronounce Uso.
Well, that's McMullen. But yeah, I digress.
Good show. You're down there at 5:00 tomorrow, and you will be back here tomorrow. And I'm holding your feet to the fire. None of this toss up. It's got to either be an Eagle win or an Eagle loss. So be ready.
Well, I picked the Browns eventually. I leaned Browns. Most people leaned Browns. I would lean Browns, but I was disappointed with both offenses. I want to see both offenses bounce back because in theory, the Eagles' offense is obviously the strength of their team, obviously. And the Browns' offense on paper should be their strength. Neither performed well. Neither.
We will be back here again tomorrow where Johnny Mac will have to make a tough call on the win of today's joint practice. So you want to be here right at 8:00 when the Mac and Mac boys return in 2 and 2.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.